Good morning, everybody. Today, there's some technical problems in the morning, so we're a bit late today. So we'll talk about Proverbs chapter 20. Proverbs chapter 20 is a very beautiful proverb. So when we look at it, you'll know. So let's look at verse 1. So it's like a standalone section. 2 to 8 is another one. And then 9 to 26. And then 26 to 30. Wine is a mocker. Strong drink is a brawler. And whoever is led astray by it is not wise. So at the beginning, it talks about wine. So why? It's like it focuses on wine. Why do we mention wine? What's the problem with wine? Wine is easy to cause people to brawl and led astray. It's not the problem with wine. It's the problem is it's self-constraint. If you have no self-constraint, you'll become a mocker. Everybody's response is different after they get drunk. Some people will sleep, some people will become crazy. So the meaning of when you brawl, it means that after drinking, and if you can't control yourself after drinking, you need to control yourself. Don't drink that much. Don't overdrink. And whoever is led astray by it is not wise. If you over consume wine, the moral of this is that you need to have self-constraint in life. So at the beginning, it talks about wine. Why talk about wine? Because if you look at this chapter, at the back, we talk about responsibilities and righteousness as a king. If you are king and you have a lot of power, but if you don't have self-constraint, it's very dangerous. King is different from other people. King has authority, and if he speaks whatever he wants after getting drunk, or when he gets drunk, he can kill someone, execute someone. When after getting drunk, there's no self-constraint. You can't stop them. So the more authority you have, the higher you are, it's very important to have self-constraint. So it starts with wine. And later on, they will talk about kings. In verse 2 to verse 8, it's a very beautiful prophet. You look at the PowerPoint, it is from verse 2 to verse 8 is from verse 2 we call it A. This is live. We're using the phone to do the live. Real time is better. Physical meeting is better. So verse 2, let's make it A. And then 3 to 4, we call it B. It's about, and C is about strategy. That's verse 5. B pi is like a mirror of verse 3 to 4. 6 to 7 is like 3 to 4. And then verse 8 is also a mirror image of the king's responsibility. It mirrors to verse 2. So B and B Pi is about being able to see conflict and being able to see so you can see this is it's like a sandwich kind of structure. So you can see that this proverb is very beautiful. The structure is very clear. So we look at this structure and looks at verse 2. What's the king's responsibility? The wrath of a king is like the roaring of the lion. Whoever provokes him to anger sins against his own life. What does it mean? The king's responsibility is like a lion. Has authority and power. So once you have authority, have a responsibility. The greater the authority, the greater the responsibility. It's like the roaring of a lion. So it tells us that we should not trigger the anger of the king. So why would you do that? There is a distance between us common people and the king. Why are you triggering the anger of the king? So we might have breached a certain law. So I always use this example. Usually we don't need to be afraid of policemen. If we didn't do anything that broke the law, if we follow the law, we don't need to be afraid of policemen. But if you threw a tissue on the floor and the policeman saw what you did, would you be afraid? So whoever provokes him to anger sins against his own life. Don't challenge the law. What is the responsibility of the king is to uphold righteousness, to maintain stability in the country. So the king needs to have authority and to promote righteousness, so that when he under his control, there wouldn't be any chaos. This is the responsibility of the king. So the king needs to rule like that. So verse 2 talks about the king's responsibility. Power needs to take on that authority. If you are the authority in the company, you have the responsibility. You need to be careful because God gave you the power. You need to be responsible to God. But the problem is you don't take on authority. There's no boundary. Although you are a supervisor, you don't care. You don't do any work, and everybody under you is so chaotic. You try to maintain harmony, but you don't build a team. So you don't challenge. And there's no if you don't take on the authority, the team will not grow. So the team is very lazy, and there's no hierarchy, and not getting off at 5 p.m. and then already at home at 3 p.m. This is not a real wisdom. We need to have responsibility. It is like a roaring lion. You stand on the side of righteousness. We cannot hide. Let's look at verse 3 and verse 4. It is honorable for a man to stop striving, since any fool can start a quarrel. The lazy man will not plow because of winter. He will beg during harvest and have nothing. So we need to be able to see and go away from quarrel. If you can see this clearly, if you know this is a quarrel, don't mix yourself into it, get yourself into it. Don't get yourself into other people's quarrels. If we are an authority, we are a smart person, a wise person, don't get involved into quarrels. Don't gang up with someone. We like to gang up with people. Once you gang up with people, you lose your rationality. Is this gang, what they do, are they rational? And then you start gossiping about other people, and you're not from a righteous position to talk about it. So long as you like that gang, you gang up with them. So to move away from quarrel is wise. So look at it from a high vantage point. And lazy man will not plow because of winter. He will beg during harvest and have nothing. Why do we put laziness and quarrel together? Lazy people will bring quarrels because those people, they have no clear goal. When they need to plow, and then at that time, all they want to do is to quarrel with other people. If they do something that's proper, then it won't be like this. And during quarrel, there's something very funny. There's one time, do you remember when North Point Pier? At that time, there was a lot of revival. In 100 nights, during the 100 nights, all the family was very harmonious, because we have to go to that gathering every night. And for 100 nights, those 100 nights have revived because they're busy. They're so busy they can't quarrel with the wife. So if you have something to do, if you have too much time in your hands, it's very easy to quarrel. So verse 3 to 4 is connected. Don't get yourself into quarrels. It's to avoid quarrels. Do something proper. We need to consider things that we need to consider. If we have a lot of things to do, if you're nosy, if you are... So wise people, we need to know. So verse 5 is the middle. Counsel in the heart of man is like deep water, but the man of understanding will draw it out. So we need to understand, as a wise man, we need to understand the heart of man is like deep water. It's very hard to understand what other people think. It's very hard to know what other people think. If you're wise, you can take out what's in the heart of a man. If we are the king of wisdom, there is ability to look through people. So it's who can see through other people's minds? Only God knows people. People who look at others on the surface, but God sees your heart. If you rely on God, you can do it. If you're close to God, even someone wants to frame you. If there's something very deep down in the heart wants to frame you, a wise person, what does it mean? On righteousness, we have a good relationship with God. God is the protection. For example, in the morning devotion, in the second book of Kings, a Syrian wanted to frame the Israeli kings, but all the plots that were privately, so the prophets have reviewed all the dark plans of the Assyrians, not only just once. The Israeli king has avoided a lot of these disasters. The Holy Spirit will remind us. The Holy Spirit will remind us how to proceed. So we are authority. If we are king, we need to get that perspective from God. Do we have that wisdom to rely on God to review all the dark plans and plots? Do we have that choice? Let's look at verse 6 and 7. Most men will proclaim each his own goodness, but who can find a faithful man? The righteous man walks in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. Most men will proclaim each own goodness, but who can find a faithful man? People just like to wear masks, to package yourself very well, tell everybody about the best part of yourself. That's what we want to do. We want to represent ourselves well. And from kindergarten, we need to go to interviews. And when you go to interview, you never tell your teacher that you are the laziest and always like watching TV. You won't say that. We will teach our children to try to behave during interviews. Are they really behaving? So from we are young, we will give the best to other people, show the best to other people. So talk about our good things. But the real righteous people, how many can we find? We need to look for something that's opposite. So no matter how good you say about yourself, for example, you want to behave, you pretend to be behaving before the teacher, the teacher will eventually find out you're not. As king, you need to have that perspective to know who's real and who's fake, who is really good and who's just pretending to be good. You need to know how to use people. And from a strategic point of view, when you pick your subordinates, we need to be able to find good friends. Find simple and pure people as your friends. Before you have friends who are simple and pure, you need to be simple and pure. In Chinese saying, so we follow birds of a feather flock together. Very easy. Those who like to play will flock together with those who like to play. Those who like painting will flock together with people who like painting. If you have righteous people and trustworthy people, you need to be a righteous and trustworthy person. You need to rise up to that. So your life will be different. You need to find someone that is devoted to God. Then you can, in a simple and pure environment, remind each other. Just like this is the kind of blessing that we're looking for. This is the wisdom. So you look at these. It's about real king. A king who sits on the throne of judgment scatters all evil with his eyes. So you can see that verse 8 is parallel with verse 2. So the king sits on the throne of the judgment, scatters all evil with his eyes. God needs to maintain the righteousness and has the power so that all the evil things cannot overstep the boundary. So if you're a king, if you're on the throne, you need to be able to scatter all evils with your eyes. So righteousness will be protected. As someone with authority, we need to defend righteousness. So verse 2 and verse 8 is about the king's responsibility. And verse 3 to 7 is about the wisdom. And whether you can uphold righteousness depends on the wisdom. We need to be able to see through what's in other people's minds. This kind of wisdom. To be fearful of God is the beginning of wisdom. So do you have God's protection? Are you on God's side? So that you will be on the side of God. So let's look at clause 9, verse 9 to verse 25. So when you structure it, it is also like a sandwich. If you look at the PowerPoint, it just sandwiches the middle part. B pi, C pi, D pi, E pi is like a mirror. It corresponds to the earlier verses. 9 corresponds to verse 24 to 25. Who can say, I have made my heart clean, I am pure from my sin? Who can say? Man is very interesting. How do they really know themselves? If we are weak, if we are really weak, and we know and accept ourselves, we'll rely on God. But many a times, we don't really know ourselves. I have made my heart clean, I am pure from my sin. So we clean our own sins. Can we be cleaned? It's not. So, in other words, everybody has sinned, but not everybody admits they are sinners. We will say things that, oh, I'm not that bad. But we are a pendulum. Sometimes we say we're not that bad. Sometimes we say, oh, we are just so bad. But these two extremes are not good. These two extremes will bring giving up. When you say, I'm not that bad, you are giving up improvement. So it's hard to progress. Now it's quite good. Why do we need to progress? So keep the status quo is quite good. The other extreme, I'm so bad. So if I'm too bad, there's no saving us. So it's also giving up. Man must know yourself. If you know yourself, we need to know ourselves and also know God. We need God as the parameter, as our parameter to proceed in life. But not a lot of people have that self-realization. Verse 11. Diverse ways and diverse measures, they are both alike an abomination to the Lord. So even the child is known by his deeds, whether what he does is pure and right. If you go to the old wet markets, they will trick you and they'll be tricky. For example, playing Monopoly, you cheat. Some people might have done. So when you throw a dice 5, then you pretend it's not. Basically, cheating. There are a lot of things that can be done. We need to know. We need to see clearly. Wise people will need to know. We need to keep the purity of children. A child will not hide things. If they're happy, they're happy. They're unhappy, they're unhappy. This is what we should be looking for. The older we are, the more complex we are. So we need to understand 12 and 13. The hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord has made them both. Do not love sleep, lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes, and you will be satisfied with bread. What God has created this world, there is a lot of opportunities to interact with God. We need to open our eyes. We need to work hard. We need to hold on to opportunities from God. Do not hide from your responsibility. Don't miss opportunities from God. 14. It is good for nothing, cries the buyer, but when he has gone his way, then he boasts. This is like these trickery. Using deeds. When you buy, this is not good, this is not good. But when you buy it, but when you take it home, you boast about how great this product is. These are fake wisdom. It's not a good thing. If I'm the owner of the shop, if you're too aggressive with the negotiation, the next time the shopkeeper sees you, the owner may not do business with you. Don't go to extreme. It's good or it's not good. You may say it's a bit too expensive today. You can say that. But you don't need to attack other people. Those who think that they are so good, they attack other people. It's just fake wisdom. There is gold and a multitude of rubies, but the lips of knowledge are a precious jewel. 14 and 15 are opposites. We don't want worldly wisdom. We want real wisdom. What is real wisdom? It's lips of knowledge. We need to say positive things. We need to say things that uplift people. Don't need to destroy people. We can use other ways. Then 16:17, take the garment of one who is surety for a stranger and hold it as a pledge when it is for a seductress. Bread gained by deceit is sweet to a man, but afterward his mouth will be filled with gravel. What is it about? Verse 16 and 17. Don't be rash. Don't be a surety for other people if you need to pay. So we need to be honest and down to earth. Don't be rash. Don't help other people without even thinking about it. You may have the problem with some of the domestic helpers is that they become surety, guarantor for other people. If you want to be the guarantor, you need to be prepared that you need to repay the loan. If you do this, it might be better just to lend directly to the other person. So this is why we say he's very rash. Don't do something that's beyond your ability. Don't walk this kind of path. And verse 18, it corresponds to verse 15. Verse 15 is about wisdom, increasing wisdom. 18, plans are established by counsel. By wise counsel wage war. What is it about? In Chinese, it's not very clear. Plans are established by counsel. We need to have plans. We need to be able to make plans. This is real wisdom. We need to be prepared. We need to be able to plan ahead. So, on this part, I rely on my wife because Simo is good at planning. Her plans are very detailed. So I rely on her. I only have frameworks, but she will put in the details. So in searching for real wisdom, we can ask for other people's help. Verse 19. So it corresponds to verse 14. Verse 19 says, he who goes about as a talebearer reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with one who flatters with his lips. You need to know who is reliable and who's not reliable. You need to, if you tell someone who's nosy, everybody will know. Don't be close to people who cannot keep their mouth shut. 20 and 21. Whoever curses his father or mother, his lamp will be put out in deep darkness. An inheritance gained hastily at the beginning will not be blessed at the end. So verse 21, an inheritance gained hastily at the beginning will not be blessed at the end. Those who take shortcuts, those wants to be quick in. Why is it connected to verse 20 about curses his father and mother? When will you curse your father and mother? When we fight with the parents, it's usually father said, you need to do your homework. Why do you curse? Why do you curse your parents? Because your parents are reminding you. These kind of curses, parents are just reminding us, son, this is not very good. It's a gray area. Parents just want us to be safe. And when we're young, we want everything to be quick. But when we're old, we want everything to be stable, not quick. And we remind children, when we remind them, you will curse the parents. So this is the, taking shortcuts. So when I'm in my 50s, being stable is more important. Don't be too quick. Don't be quick. Don't be too quick. Don't be quick. Don't be too rash and rushed. B-Pi 21:22. Do not say, I will encompass evil. Wait for the Lord, and he will save you. Diverse weights are an abomination of the Lord, and honest scales are not good. So you can see that it corresponds to the earlier verses. We need to rely on God. We don't need to take revenge. We need to rely on God. If people frame us, we don't need to frame them back. God will be fair. God don't want us to avenge, because when we avenge, it's always an eye for an eye. If I frame someone, I'll frame them back. This kind of vengeance is not good, because someone who wants to avenge that person will not be happy. God doesn't want us to be unhappy. So when you trick us, you don't need to trick them back. God is the judge. I want my life to be happy. If you want to take revenge, whatever you do is controlled by the other person. You have no freedom. This is not what God wanted. This is also wisdom 24:25. A man's steps are of the Lord. How then can a man understand his own way? It is a snare for a man to devote rashly something as holy, and afterwards to reconsider his vows. Verse 9, men don't know themselves. In A-Pi it says, man cannot control its fate. A man's steps are of the Lord. Who knows where we're going? Only God knows. God is the way, the truth, of life. So as men, we need to know our limitations. If we have this understanding, if we follow God, then we'll go to the real way of life. Let's look at the final part, 26 to verse 30. 26 to 27 is one section, and then 28 is one in the middle. It's like a small sandwich. Let's look at 26 and 27. Wise king sieves out the wicked and brings the threshing wheel over them. The spirit of man is the lamp of the Lord, searching all the inner depths of his heart. And those who dispense righteousness as king, the king who spits out the wicked, he has a clear, his heart is clear and can do whatever they like. A real king is the spirit of man is the Lamb of the Lord. So a wise king can know whether the spirit is right. If we can see that a man's spirit is not right, we need to be careful. Even those who have not received the Lord as a Gentile, like Daniel and other people, they can see that there's the Lord's spirits in you. So we need to use our spiritual. Real wisdom is to be able to see through the spirit, especially when you exercise righteousness, and what is good and what is evil. 28. Mercy and truth preserve the king, and by loving kindness he upholds his throne. This is the basis of the country. This is the basis of the country. It's the same with a company and a family. Mercy and truth preserves everything. 29:30. The glory of young men is their strength, and the splendor of old men is their gray head. Blows that hurt cleanse away evil, and do stripes the inner depths of the heart. It's not when you dispense righteousness, you're not trying to destroy someone or hurt that person. You're trying to build up that person so that man can revert back to. It's not trying to hoping that the person can repent and build that person. This is the real reason of dispensing righteousness. Sometimes when we are you criticize that person, if you go to the extreme, but you want to label that person as bad and stigmatize that person, and then feeling that we're righteous. Once we point out the other person's fault, so God is the same way. God has given the judgment. That's the most important thing of dispensing righteousness. That's the Lord help us to have this kind of wisdom so that we can have real wisdom.